The morning of my wedding, I woke up to a text from my future mother-in-law. "We've taken your dress. The venue is cancelled, and your fiancé knows what's best." My hands shook as I dialed his number, but when I showed up at the ceremony, they were the ones who got a nasty surprise. I should have trusted my gut. It was all there from the start. My future mother-in-law, Martha, never really liked me. When my fiancé David was around, she smiled and played nice, but when it was just the two of us, she made it clear she didn't think I was good enough for her son. She nitpicked everything about my wedding, criticizing my dress, rejecting my venue ideas, and pouting like a spoiled kid when I disagreed. I used to think she was simply overbearing, but now I see the truth. I believed David was different, that he'd always be on my side, but I was about to learn just how mistaken I was. I woke up filled with excitement and nerves. It was my wedding day, the day I had planned for months and spent thousands of dollars on. It was the day I was meant to walk down the aisle and start my life with the man I loved. Then my phone buzzed. It was Martha. "We've taken your dress. The venue is cancelled, and your fiancé knows what's best. Don't make a scene, just accept it." For a moment, I thought I was still dreaming. My head spun, my stomach churned, and I had to read the message several times before it sank in. I bolted upright, nearly toppling out of bed, my heart pounding as I called David. His voicemail answered immediately. I tried Sarah, my maid of honor, but there was no response. When I called the venue, the woman on the phone hesitated before saying, "Oh yes, David called early this morning and canceled everything." "I'm so sorry." My hands trembled. It couldn't be real. I rushed to my closet only to find my wedding dress gone, along with the shoes I'd picked out and even the veil. Then the panic shifted to something colder and sharper. They'd planned this all along. They waited until the very last moment, thinking I'd be too crushed to fight back. They were dead wrong. I grabbed the first clothes I could find and my keys. If my dress was missing, someone had to have taken it. My first thought was to drive to David's house, but something inside urged me to go straight to Martha's. When she opened the door, her eyes held a smug satisfaction. She didn't act surprised at all. She just sighed and leaned against the doorway like I was an inconvenience. "You need to calm down," she said, over and over. There I was, in sweatpants on my wedding morning, being told to calm down. "Where's my dress?" I demanded. Martha didn't even blink. "It's gone, and you won't need it anyway. The wedding is off." My heart pounded. "You don't have the power to cancel my wedding." I wanted to slap her for that smirk. David made the call, doing what's best. I took a deep breath. "Where is he?" I asked. "Busy," she replied. Somehow, I managed not to scream or break something. I knew I wouldn't get any answers from her, so I left, but I wasn't finished yet. I had a terrible feeling in my gut. If Martha had pulled something like this, it wasn't just a last-minute cancellation, it was something worse. I drove to the venue, and that's when I saw it. Cars pulling in, guests arriving. The venue was decorated just as I had planned, which meant the wedding wasn't cancelled. It just wasn't my wedding anymore. I parked and walked toward the entrance. No one stopped me. Friends and guests smiled as I passed, completely unaware. When I stepped through the doors, I saw her, Rachel, in a wedding dress. My wedding dress. Rage and numbness flooded me. Rachel had been my friend, always close to David. I had ignored her offhand remarks, playful touches, and the way she looked at him when she thought I wasn't watching. Now she stood at the altar with my fiancé, wearing my dress as if I never existed. The betrayal was crushing. It choked me, made my heart sink, as if I were disappearing into the floor. David stood there, calm and relaxed, as though nothing monstrous was happening. And then it all clicked. This wasn't a last-minute decision. It wasn't impulsive. It was planned. David had let me spend months preparing the wedding, sending invitations, and spending thousands of dollars. He allowed me to believe I was marrying the love of my life while secretly planning to marry someone else. They wanted me to wake up, see that my wedding was cancelled, and then vanish from his life as if I were nothing. They thought I'd just accept it and disappear. They had no idea who they were messing with. I stood frozen as people laughed, chatted, and took their seats, oblivious to the fact that this wasn't a normal wedding. It was a hijacking. Martha stood at the front, smiling proudly, like she'd executed the perfect crime. Rachel adjusted my veil, glowing like a fake angel, while David remained unervingly composed, not even searching for me because he knew he wasn't on the hook. Something inside me finally broke. I should have cried or collapsed, but instead, a strange calm settled over me. They'd taken everything: my dress, my venue, my fiancé, my wedding, but I wasn't done yet. I squared my shoulders and kept walking. Some guests glanced at me with confusion or recognition, and whispers began, but no one stopped me until I reached the front row. Martha's eyes locked onto mine, and for the first time, I saw fear there. She quickly stepped in front of me, as if to block me from ruining her fantasy. "You need to leave," she hissed in a low voice. I smiled, a real smile, and said, "I think I'll stay." The whispers grew louder, and I saw my cousin Rebecca staring with wide eyes. I looked to Sarah, my maid of honor and best friend, and noticed the guilty look on her face. My stomach twisted. I'd been betrayed by my fiancé, by my so-called friend Rachel, by his controlling mother, and even by Sarah. That hurt the most. Sarah opened her mouth to say something, but I wasn't in the mood for excuses. I turned back to Martha, who still tried to act in control. You weren't invited, she said, forcing a smile. I laughed out loud. Last I checked, this was my wedding. David then turned, his face blank for a moment, but I saw a flicker of panic in his eyes. Rachel, standing beside him, went pale. People were definitely watching now. David stepped forward, his voice calm and rehearsed. Let's not do this here. I tilted my head and gestured around the venue. Oh, but you planned all of this behind my back, didn't you? Rachel tried to grab David's arm, as if she could somehow fix it all, but it was too late. I cut her off. You didn't? What? Rachel didn't steal my fiancé, didn't wear my dress, and didn't let me plan my own wedding while you waited in the wings to take my place. Her lips moved like a fish's, opening and closing. I turned to David. How long? I asked. He stayed silent. How long have you been planning this? Still nothing. Rachel fidgeted. It just happened, she said. I let out a bitter laugh. It just happened? So you tripped and fell into my wedding dress and into my fiancé's bed. Martha sighed theatrically. Stop making a scene. I snapped my head toward her. You planned this, didn't you? She didn't deny it. I nodded, feeling a cold detachment spreading through me. You know, Martha, I was ready to be the bigger person, marry your son, and put up with you for the rest of my life. But now I'm going to destroy you. Martha flinched. Good, David finally said calmly. It's over. Let's move on. Move on? Move on. Something inside me snapped. All right, I said, pulling out my phone. Let's tell everyone what's really happening. I hit play. Martha's voice boomed from the speakers. We've taken your dress, the venue's cancelled, and your fiancé knows what's best. Gasps echoed. Then David's voice came. Babe, I'm sorry, but my mom is right. You're just not good enough. Rachel is better suited for me. She'll be a proper wife. Complete silence followed, so quiet I could hear someone drop their champagne glass. Rachel took a step back from David, horrified. Martha's face drained of color, and David looked like he was about to hurl. I took a deep breath, letting the moment sink in, then leaned in to look Rachel dead in the eye. You still want him? She managed. Suddenly, she bolted. Martha turned to David. You told her that? David's face remained frozen, his mind clearly struggling to process how badly things were falling apart. I pulled out another piece of paper. You know what else I have? I said, slowly unfolding it, the wedding bill. Martha's head snapped around. What? David and I had signed financial agreements before the wedding, meaning he was responsible for everything. Martha's jaw dropped. $35,000. I read from the paper. David's expression turned to pure horror. That's not, he shrugged, it's in writing. Signed. Legal. Then I smiled. And if you don't pay, I leaned closer. Well, you know I love a good public scandal. Martha looked as if she were about to faint. David stammered. You can't do that. Oh, I can, I replied, turning to the crowd. Ladies and gentlemen, enjoy the show, because it's not over yet. David looked like a trapped rat. Martha's mouth moved silently, no words coming out. The guests were stunned, some even whipped out their phones to record every moment. Rachel had vanished. But then Sarah, my so-called best friend, stood there, frozen in guilt. I wasn't finished yet. David had taken everything from me, his mother had made sure of it. They expected me to be too embarrassed, too broken to fight back. They underestimated me, and now I was going to ruin them. Just as Martha was about to shout an excuse, the door swung open. A sharply dressed man with a briefcase stepped in. Apologies for the interruption, he said loudly. David's face turned ghostly white. This is my lawyer, he added, nodding at me. Everything is in order. I smiled. Perfect timing. Martha grabbed David's arm as if to hold him up before he collapsed. You got a lawyer? She spat. I turned to her. Of course I did. You and your son stole my wedding, my money, and my time. Did you really think I wasn't going to get some legal backup? Gasps rippled through the crowd, and whispers grew louder. David finally managed a voice. This is ridiculous, but my lawyer cut him off. According to the financial agreement signed before this event, David, you are legally bound to cover all wedding expenses. David choked on air. $35,000? No, that's not, my lawyer continued, non-negotiable. You planned this wedding and then swapped out the bride at the last minute. That means your son now owes the full bill. David's face went pale. You have until the end of the day, my lawyer added, before legal action is taken. A waiter coughed to hide a laugh. Someone muttered, Holy SH, then another voice spoke up. Wait, Sarah. Her voice trembled. I turned, unsure if I even wanted to hear what she had to say, but she looked broken. Taking a deep breath, she said, I knew more. Gasps. David's head snapped toward her. Sarah, shut up, he ordered. She shook her head frantically. No, I can't keep lying. Tears welled in her eyes. Martha told me weeks ago that they were planning to replace you. She said you weren't the right kind of wife for David. I felt sick. My best friend had known. Sarah wiped her eyes. I wanted to tell you. I really did, but Martha threatened me. She said if I warned you, she'd ruin me. She'd make sure I lost my job. I blinked. Your job, murmured the guests. Sarah continued, Martha owns the firm I work at. She said she'd fire me if I told you. Martha crossed her arms and the crowd booed. Someone yelled, Are you serious? Desperate, Sarah looked at me. I'm sorry, I was weak. I held up a hand. I can't process this right now. I turned back to David and Martha. You really threatened my best friend's job just to get rid of me? Martha rolled her eyes. It's called handling problems. I exhaled sharply. Unbelievable. But Sarah wasn't finished. Turning to David, her hands trembling, she said, Tell her the rest. David froze. Martha spun toward her. Sarah, don't you dare. Her voice rose, Tell her the rest. David fell silent, a dead silence. I watched his face crumble. I knew then it was even worse than I thought. I stepped forward. David, he wouldn't meet my eyes. Tell me, he swallowed hard, his hands clenching into fists, his jaw locked. Finally, he muttered, Rachel's pregnant. The room exploded. I staggered back. Pregnant? Pregnant? I heard gasps, whispers, and curses. Rachel had been my friend. She had stolen my fiancé, worn my dress, tried to take my wedding, and now she was having his baby. And I was supposed to just disappear? David even had the nerve to look remorseful, as if an apology could fix everything. I glared at Martha. So that's what this was about. That's why you wanted me gone. Martha merely shrugged, as if it were obvious. Rachel was giving my son an heir, like we were some medieval royalty. I left. Actually, I left. David winced. I didn't mean for it to go like this, he said. I raised a hand. Just don't. I turned to the guests. Everyone, give a big round of applause for David and Rachel, who are expecting a child after stabbing me in the back. Someone clapped, and a woman murmured, I need more popcorn. David looked miserable. Martha was seething. I was done. I turned to my lawyer. Are we good? He nodded. I'll handle the rest. Perfect. I smoothed down my suit and walked out. I still had one more move to make, and this was just the beginning. I should have left. I wanted to leave, but something inside told me I wasn't finished. After everything, the stolen wedding, the lies, the betrayal, there was still one piece missing, and I needed to find it out. I turned back to David, who was rubbing his temples as if this whole mess was just a headache to him, like I was nothing more than a problem to solve. Martha muttered under her breath, shooting Sarah a death glare as if wishing she could burn her with her mind. The guests were eating this up, some covering their mouths in shock, others recording on their phones. Then, Rachel reappeared. She stormed back in, furious. No, not guilty, but furious. You just had to ruin everything. She snapped at me as she marched down the aisle in my dress, acting like she still belonged there. I raised an eyebrow. Oh, I'm sorry. Did I ruin your big day? She crossed her arms and panted. You weren't supposed to find out like this. I stared at her, stunned. For a moment before, I actually laughed. Yes, laughed. You're unbelievable. I asked, which part did you think I'd never uncover? The bit where you stole my fiancé? The part where you wore my dress? Or the part where you're carrying this baby? She flinched, and I knew then that was never meant to be revealed. David groaned. Rachel, stop. Stop talking, I lunged. What else is there, Rachel? You might as well spill it all now. She looked away. Suddenly, Martha stepped forward, panicked. Rachel, don't you dare, too late. Rachel snapped. You think I'm the villain? She spat. Do you have any idea what I was promised? The whole room fell silent as David's head snapped up. Rachel continued, they told me I'd have a perfect life, that David would marry me, that we'd be this flawless couple, and that I'd be the new face of their family. I felt my stomach twist. Martha had orchestrated this long before today, meticulously choosing Rachel as a replacement doll, with David complicit in the plan. Rachel's voice trembled, but now I see the truth. I was never meant to be the wife. I was just a tool to get rid of you, and once the baby arrived. She turned her glare on Martha. You were going to push me aside too, weren't you? Martha's face hardened. Don't be ridiculous. Rachel stepped closer, shaking her head. Oh my God, you were. That's why you kept saying the baby was the only thing that mattered. David stiffened. Rachel, let's discuss this later. But she was spiraling. You lied to me, she whispered, staring at him. You said you loved me. Martha scoffed. Love doesn't count. Rachel retorted, strong. Family values do. And that was the breaking point. Rachel tore off her veil, tossed it at Martha's feet, and let out a bitter, sharp laugh. I was just another pawn, she cried, her voice cracking, then pointed at me. Suddenly it hit me, Rachel wasn't my replacement. She and I were in the same boat. She too had fallen for the lie. The only difference was that I got out before it was too late. Rachel wiped her eyes, turned, and walked out without another word. David called after her, Rachel, wait. but she didn't respond. Then Martha snapped, "This is your fault." She pointed at me. I blinked. My fault? Martha jabbed a finger at my chest. If you had just left quietly, none of this would have happened. I exhaled sharply. You really don't understand, do you? David didn't love me, and guess what? He doesn't love Rachel either. You've controlled his entire life and ruined it. David's jaw clenched. Martha then turned on him. Say something, she demanded. David stood there silently, a pathetic man who had finally realized he'd lost everything. I could have destroyed him further with one final brutal remark that would have buried him, but he wasn't worth it. None of them were. So I stepped back and turned to my lawyer. Let it go. He nodded, adjusting his tie. We'll send the final paperwork later. I walked down the aisle, the very aisle I was supposed to walk down in a white dress, past stunned guests, hushed whispers, and a seething Martha. I didn't stop. I didn't look back. Of course, David tried to reach out, sending pathetic messages. Can we talk? I made a mistake. I just need a chance to explain. I never answered. Rachel disappeared. She moved out of state, and no one really knows where she ended up. As for Martha, well, she lost everything. David never recovered from the public humiliation. The wedding scandal spread like wildfire. His business deals collapsed, people stopped trusting him, and when Martha's reputation began to crumble, she turned on David. I heard she left to start fresh without him. Karma did all the work for me. And as for me, I thrived. I moved to a new city, found a real job, made genuine friends, and stopped looking back. Because the truth is, I won, not because I took revenge or humiliated them, but because I walked away, because I discovered a life far better than the one they tried to trap me in. And now, when I look back on that day, that text, that betrayal, that whole disaster, I feel nothing at all. And that, to me, is the sweetest revenge. I started to rebuild my life, piece by piece, in a new city where the echoes of that painful day began to fade. I immersed myself in fresh beginnings, finding a genuine job, cultivating friendships that didn't come with hidden agendas, and rediscovering who I was without the weight of betrayal. Every day, I grew stronger, leaving behind the shadows of the past. One crisp autumn evening, I received an invitation to a community fundraiser, a chance to contribute to a cause close to my heart. As I mingled with new faces, I recognized someone from my former life standing by the refreshment table. It was Rachel. Her eyes held traces of regret and the weariness of battles long fought. We exchanged cautious smiles, and in a quiet corner away from the buzz, we began to talk. I never meant for it to end like that, she murmured, her voice soft with remorse. I listened as she confessed the deep hurt and mistakes that had shaped her path since that chaotic day. In that moment, I realized we were two wounded souls trying to find our way out of the darkness. As we spoke, the bitterness of our shared history slowly gave way to a mutual understanding. I told her how I had discovered strength in letting go, finding peace not by exacting revenge, but by embracing life's endless possibilities. Rachel nodded, a tear glistening in her eye, and whispered, "Maybe it's time we both forgive ourselves." That night, under the gentle glow of streetlights, we agreed to leave the past behind. Not for each other, but for ourselves. It wasn't about forgetting. It was about accepting that sometimes, the best resolution is the freedom to start over. Months later, as I walked down a quiet street, I reflected on my journey. The betrayal, the scandal, and the pain had all led me to this moment of genuine peace. I had built a life defined by my own choices, a life rich with honest connections, self-respect, and hope. In the end, the real victory wasn't in destroying the past, but in rising above it. I had reclaimed my narrative and discovered that the best revenge was simply living well and loving myself fiercely. And as the cool night air embraced me, I smiled, knowing that I had finally found my resolution and my freedom.